Welcome to a very serious episode of Res Politics and a New Energy series. I will go through and educate everyone on energy and energy production as best I can. Artie Wheeler traveled down to Idaho to the GAIN research labs. This is where all of our nuclear technology is developed for the United States of America. This is also where the SMR nuclear reactors are being developed, and was the reason Artie Wheeler went down to take a look at these new power plants. This is what she found at the tour.
Okay, I came down here specifically to look at small modular reactors that are being developed and the research behind them. Where are we? Can I see something? And it was shocking to me, but I was told no, there's nothing here. I said, you mean you don't even have like a little model? Something we can look at, or I can look at, because that's what I learn best from. Even if it's a model, I can just kind of figure out what the process is. And they said, no, we don't have anything like that. But we're researching it, and it's in development.
Shocking to not find anything there that is tangible to look at, or see or touch. We really have to take a step back and ask if the development they're going to do in Colstrip should have to be proven at the testing site in Idaho. After all, the testing site is over 800 square miles of nothing but desert, and was allocated by the U.S. government as a proving ground in case the worst happens. Maybe someone should tell Gary Perry. Colstrip is going to be the testing and proving site of SMR nuclear reactors. They are not bringing one in, they are building, testing, and proving it in Colstrip, Gary. You didn't go through the process of letting the public decide and didn't inform the tribe. How long have you known about this, Gary? That there is no actual proof that these SMR nuclear reactors don't actually exist, but only in concepts of non-working models. There were all kinds of plans and drawings of these reactors on the slideshow from GAIN, but nothing in real life.
Power plants. I've been thinking that the 86? Oh, no, 82. Okay. I started on Colstrip. Colstrip was built under an agreement with our tribe. It was to, part of the agreement, I just want to brief there with this agreement, and you guys can get your own copies from the, you're allowed to have any kind of information. This is our tribe, this is our business, and these are records that we should have access to. You go in, you ask the people here that are secretaries, whoever, and there are different request forms for what documents you want. If you're doing research, you have every right to ask our questions. We can't tell you, oh, we can't give that to you. No, yes, you can. Because this is tribal business. Okay. So, going back to this agreement, Colstrip was built with an agreement with the Northern Cheyenne tribe. Colstrip had already, I believe most of it was already in construction when they hit a dead, they came to a kind of a halt to try. We have class 1 air above our reservation. We want that in court. So we have class 1 air designation because it was built in Korean 4. And in order for them to continue on and complete their power plants, the 2 units, they had to put in scrubbers. And that's why it was another delay a lot of building the station. With that, they agreed, the tribe went into an agreement with Montana Power and the owners of that. And the group owned these power plants. And so part of that was the infrastructure. You were going to have a lot of people coming to our reservation, going to work at Colstrip to build that. There was also funds that were donated, were given to the police department here, our police, because there was going to be more traffic on it. They needed more people on the road, and so the police had to be out there. They were given money for that. Okay. The roads were built up because of the infrastructure. I was saying they fixed the roads a little bit. Okay, then they also gave some scholarships. They were going to provide scholarships for our kids so that they could go on either with going to power or wherever. But it was kind of pushed towards that direction of power plants or the mine of Western Area. So the other thing, the big selling point for us as a tribe was the employment. Because like now, we have like, what, 80% unemployment here. And that provided a lot of construction jobs. So that was something that was negotiated to that agreement. We were actually, we actually went into skilled trades down in Bechtel, offered the trades, the training of these different skill sets. Insulators, boilermakers, pipe fitters, welders, what was the other, electricians, we had laborers, and then there were people that went into the heavy equipment operation that went into the mines at Western Energy.
And
So
operators.
and after, yeah, that was during construction. After construction, when they start staffing the units, then they offered the apprenticeships in operations and maintenance at the power plant. Those were the permanent jobs. The other ones in the construction were just temporary to help build that place. So this agreement is supposed to be in place until the power station shuts down. Whenever the end of life cycle is, it's usually about 40 years. And I believe that's what Colstrip was designed for. So Colstrip's going to come into the end of life cycle anyways. Well, with that, this is the interest that came with the nuclear. There's a lot of coal plants around the U.S. that are getting shut down now, 2025. Some have been extended to 2028. And that is if they can mitigate their extra waste and extra emissions. All right, so the coal plants are going to go away. Some of these have actually have longer extensions. And now they're turning to these small modular reactors, which are nuclear. It's a nuclear process. They can take, if you can see Colstrip in your picture, in your mind, the units, 3 and 4. When you drive into Colstrip, you see the great big ones. Those are units 3 and 4. They're still operating. And what you see there is the power station. They're using coal to make electricity there. All right, they're making electricity. Where these small modular reactors would come in is they would mothball the house station, the whole buildings and stuff all the way back, stack everything done. So that was coal. Now, the steam turbines and the generators, which actually produce the electricity, they're the things that I thought they were using. They said, no, we're not going to use them either. We're going to mothball those too. So, what comes out of the generator are the leads to the transformers. Transformers can either bring up the voltage or they can drop it down. These ones bring up the voltage because it comes off the generator at a certain voltage, goes through that transformer, and then it goes across to the switchyard. If you see that warehouse and on the side of the hill, you see a lot of substations. Okay, the power gets stepped up, it gets increased. Okay, so they can send it wherever it needs to go down the power lines. When I worked at Colstrip, we used to send the power to Seattle, Portland, and Los Angeles. They had contracts for that electricity. So what we produced there went out of state, went on one of those 500 kV lines. Okay, that's what is happening now. They're still going on that way. Now, with these small modular reactors, there is different designs of those. But basically what they are, what I understand is it's a reactor with a generator attached to it, and then you have those leads coming on the generator. And that goes into your substation, your transformer. And then from the transformer, it will go across the road to the warehouse to that substation. So they're not even going to use the building. They're just going to use where they would tie into those transformers, where the coal power actually what used to come out of the generator out of the coal plant. So these transformers is where they would connect these modules, small modular reactors, and produce the power and use that transformer and make electricity and send it wherever. That's the initial plan. That's what I understand. So I'm thinking, okay, well, what are these? Can I see something? Because I learn better when I see something. You know how it's put together. Maybe you say, okay, well, let me look at an engine. What you got in there? How's it all set up? You get familiar with that. It's your car, right? Making it like your vehicle. So for me, it's like, when I look at different configurations of plants put together, you have to learn it because each station is different. And I've seen the improvements they have done in coal, but it's a little too late because now they're getting shut down. So the interest in this country now is going towards nuclear again, but not the great big nuclear plants. Those things are kind of a thing of the past. China, Russia, India, they're still building those kind of nuclear plants. But the interest in this country has turned to those small modular ones. What I find is that it sounds good, but it's like what can you have somewhere else. We've already got a lot to deal with Colstrip, with the water, with the waste, with what we polluted in the air. Colstrip is still emitting the lead and mercury into the air. And there are processes in coal plants where you can take and in the gas path, after you burn the coal, there's a gas path. You can take the NOx out of the NOx is what you see in the sky, it's like smog. It's kind of orange color. That's NOx, nitrous oxide. And that's created when you don't burn the coal right in your boiler. You gotta have more air than coal so it completely burns. If you do it right, you're not gonna be emitting like that. So, Colstrip, they don't have that technology of getting the NOx out of there like other stations have done. And they can do that with putting in like a catalyst, like what do you call those? Like if your catalytic, what is it, catalytic converter in your car, how it cleans up the gas from your engine where it goes out to your exhaust. So they have that technology where they put in like a great big catalyst in the path of the gas coming out of the boiler. And they spray it with ammonia and it takes that gas out, the NOx. Okay, you don't have that in there. So the gas path continues and then they inject carbon. It's called carbon injection. And what it does is it takes the mercury out. It takes the mercury out of the gas. Then you go through a flow path. The next flow path is you probably have a baghouse. That takes out all your particulate. All how do you say that? Embers or ash, whatever you call it. Okay, your derivatives. Okay, after that, then you have, sometimes it's before, but the process is they use lime. And lime injection into the slurry takes out the sulfur dioxide, which they call the acid rain, causes acid rain. So by the time it goes through these processes, you got clean gas coming out. But Colstrip doesn't have that technology. It would take money to invest in that. And if they're going to be extending, that's what I suggested to them. This is what you can do. I would do it because I've seen it in other stations and it works. Back to so now you have a little bit of background on what I'm talking about with Colstrip. So, with these small nuclear reactors, they actually use a molten salt process. It's still in development, and as we know, we all know that salt is quite corrosive. It eats things up. And their technology so far is to take that salt and heat it up, and it's radiated. It's got nuclear in it, right? So, with that, it gives off the energy. And there's still a research and development of that. Because there have to be composites, there have to be materials that would be able to sustain that process and continue that process to make electricity and to contain it so it doesn't blow up and cause a reaction like a release of radiation. Okay, so this is what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to keep my part of it short. I'm down in Miami, Florida now, that's where I live. And I came after I got a little break. I'm still contracting, I'm still working in power plants. Mainly it's been coal plants and it's the decommissioning part of it. So what I'm doing here is, I'm concerned about what's going on in Colstrip. I've come up here twice. And the first time that we went to this meeting, that's called the Energy Open, and it's open to all of us. You just need to find out when that date is. It's right here in Colstrip. You go there, they had it at the high school, they give presentations on the power and whatnot, and you have the right to ask questions. It's just getting the incentive to be there when the time is posted. I think the next one is August 7th, is what I was told. Colstrip's committee down there is a separate organization where it started as the Southeastern Montana Economic Development Corporation. That's what they call themselves. And they were trying to find ways to make money, trying to keep the economy going, kind of keep it down the line. People having jobs and whatnot. So this is where they've gone, and 2 years ago we had a hydrogen technology coming, and they gave a presentation that I really liked. I'm more based towards hydrogen, but that's just me. They have technology now where they can use hydrogen gas and burn it in a gas turbine. And the overall, when it's finalized right now, it's being put to use. The first one in our country that's being built, and it's actually started right now, is in Delta, Utah. Delta, Utah is shutting their units down in the 31st of January, December. And they brought in 2 gas turbines that can burn hydrogen blended with natural gas. They have the composites that can handle that, the temperatures. And so that's what they're doing right now. They're actually testing right now. They're bringing those online. By 2040, I think it is, 2040, they hope to have a complete hydrogen and no more natural gas. And when you burn hydrogen, the byproduct of that, what's going to come out your pipe, if you had a hydrogen car, what's coming out your tailpipe as water vapor. That's why I like hydrogen. The technology is there to contain it. It'll take a lot to have, you know. That's another thing we get afraid of. It's like, oh, it's a hydrogen bomb, we're going to blow up in our car. No, it's been in research for years. They've actually had a hydrogen engine for vehicles for a long time. But those patents were bought out by the oil companies or the car companies, because that was what they're not business. So we've always had the hydrogen technology as far as, now it's more directed towards power generation. That's what I would rather see at Colstrip. I would rather see that kind of clean technology. And if those things are easy to build, it's a quick build. They pour pads for that stuff, they do the civil work. They bring the pads in, and then all that stuff's already prefabricated. They bring it all in, blah, 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 and it's ready to go. Those are burning versus natural gas in the night. That's the technology we're going to, that's what I would suggest, but that's just me, that's a personal opinion. You know, that's myself. Nuclear, I do have respect for the power that's out there. There's, in different parts of the country, that's all there is. It's nuclear power coming out the nuclear plant. That's where your electricity is coming from. It can come from anywhere. It can come from dams, it can come from solar, it can come from wind. And then these coal plants are the largest ones that produce the power in this country right now. But those are going away. So you got to think why they want to go to nuclear. Now, why they want to go to nuclear is this. Once they shut down Colstrip, like for instance, it's going to shut down. Eventually, I don't know when, but all plants are shutting down because of the emissions and the climate change, the heating of the atmosphere. It's causing all the severe weather. We see things here ourselves that normally don't happen that time of year. The temperatures, the extremes and whatnot, yeah, it's affecting the whole world. And they're blaming that carbon gas, carbon fuels. So, what's going on is that when, for instance, if you shut Colstrip down, it makes a lot of power. It's like 700 megawatts or something like that a piece. And that's a lot of power. But you take that off of the system, then you have to have something else to replace that. What are you going to put in to replace that power? Because people need it right now. They don't need you to wait and say, oh, wait a minute, we're gonna do something now. And you're sitting in the dark. So that's why they've gone to this nuclear on these small modular reactors. That's the technology that the coal companies are looking at, or the coal power stations are looking at. And it's not just here in Colstrip, it's other power stations. There's one station in Wyoming that's actually the closest to getting these small modular reactors. And that's in Kennemer, Wyoming. The company that was doing the high advertising and whatnot for these small modular reactors has actually stepped back out of it. It's too expensive. And just like anything, if you were at the time when the technology came out of buying a cell phone, they were pretty expensive, the first ones that came out. And as we progressed in time, it's cheaper to buy a cell phone now, and they have more technology. Well, that's where we're at with these small modular reactors as far as technology goes. The people that build the first ones are going to pay a lot of money for it because it's the first one. We don't know what they can improve on, what they should have done, what could be done with them, or they don't know until they try it, basically. And as time goes on, then that progression will happen. Eventually, they'll be cost effective to have these small nuclear reactors. So, with that, I'm going to go into what I saw in Wyoming. We were invited to go down for tours. I asked, can we go down there? They're from Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls, it's a big facility. It's run by the Department of Energy, which is a government agency. And they handle all the nuclear in the United States. All our work with reactors, the fuel, the research, and development is all handled in that area. It's 896 square miles. It's a big place. When I went to this tour, I thought it was a big campus where I went to go to this tour. And when I went there, I thought it was going to be in a building. You know, we're going to have presentations and slides and this kind of stuff. Well, as it turned out, we went out and you get on a bus. You get on a bus and you drive an hour. We went on a bus for an hour out in the desert. So it was interesting. They were pointing out different aspects of the tour, different areas that were out there. And the other, one other thing that they forgot to mention in Colstrip is you need a background check. It's a nuclear facility. It's a nuclear site. So background check is necessary. You need to have a real ID. And if you do go on a tour, you book 6 weeks. So if you're going to go out there, not 6 weeks ahead. If you go on vacation to Idaho or something, you want to stop and make that plan 6 weeks ahead of there. So that's when you request, and 6 weeks later is usually when you can get a tour in. But when I went into the facility, there's areas where I was asking the question, okay, I came down here specifically to look at small modular reactors that are being developed and the research behind them. Where are we? Can I see something? And it was shocking to me, but I was told, no, there's nothing here. I said, you mean you don't even have like a little model? Something we can look at, or I can look at, because that's what I learn best from. Even if it's a model, I can just kind of figure out what the process is. And they said, no, we don't have anything like that. But we're researching it, and it's in development, and on a very small scale, but it hasn't been proven yet. There's not even one built. I mean, they can't even give me any pictures. I don't have any documentation from there, because they didn't have any. I don't have any pictures from there, because they didn't have something to show me. So with that, I was able to talk to the research department that's working on these small modular reactors. That wasn't part of the tour, but because I had made the effort to be down there, they wanted to give me something. And so I was able to talk to them, talk with the researchers on how far they've gotten and what they were developing. And so it's still in the process. they've got a somewhat of a prototype, they've sent it out to be cast, I think it's in South Carolina, somewhere back east. But it's gonna be cast, kind of like a little form you can look at, and they're gonna start building on that. But that's just the research part of it. The information that you can find on this, I'm gonna share this all real quick, is go online. You all have cell phones, if you look at a YouTube video, you can find that information online. And it'll answer more of the questions and the technologies and some of the questions you might have, or whatever you might think about later. It's with the Idaho National Facility, and you Google that, it comes up as an Idaho College. It's a government agency, so there's a lot of information there that you can get. You can even request that to be downloaded onto your phone, or you can have it mailed out to you. Or if you go out there, they'll give you the information. So the gist of my information here is to bring awareness to this nuclear. Because you think about it, we have graduations today, right? And we had a graduation Friday. And the technology of this is projected to start in 2030, the big push for small modular reactors. So that's 5 years from now. And these kids that just graduated, they'll be 24, maybe even 23, whatever. That's the age group that's going to be looking at this. And they might know more about it than we do by then. But my whole purpose behind and getting into the nuclear is our future here as a tribe, our future with our land, with our air, with our water, is for the kids that are still coming, their grandkids, we still want to have our home. And yet we need to educate ourselves about this thing that we call nuclear power. Remember, it makes electricity, and also there's a lot of different things that they use for nuclear power. I mean, the nuclear. They make equipment for medical equipment. They have a division for medical equipment. And that's the stuff that we have when we go get an X-ray. That's what they develop, as well as the ones that have like brain cancer or something. They develop a cobalt for that. They do the military, which brings up the other, which also brings up the other part here for us in Montana specifically, is that we have a lot of nuclear warheads. We have those missile silos up by Great Falls. They have already been here. And those are the ones that we should kind of pay attention to right now, because with the situation going on in this world, this is what we are targeting. There's anywhere between 150 to 400 warheads in those silos, missile silos that we have. So we've already been exposed to being around nuclear. They've been in Montana for a long time. They're right around the Malmstrom Air Force Base here in Montana. In South Dakota, there's a nice little pile of them up north of Belfast, Sturgis, and they're called Bearview. I guess that's the area right above. I haven't been to Bearview, so I don't know if it's up in that area. But there's another cluster of missiles there. It's on my head, thought about for a long time. But that's what I get in my responses when I say, hey, I don't really want nuclear in Montana because I'm afraid you guys don't know about it yet. It's all developed down the road, maybe they could talk about it, but myself, I don't like it. I'm already worried about the nuclear warheads that we already have. So, I'm going to open this up for your questions and stuff. I hope I didn't forget anything. I'm going to have, after I speak, Jake is going to be speaking about the legislation and update on the two bills that were introduced. and she'll go into those about the uranium and the nuclear in Montana. So if that's in my presentation, I would suggest one thing for you guys, is to educate yourself about this. It's going to be our kids and grandchildren, or even your kids that just graduated are going to be dealing with this nuclear. If once coal goes away, they're going to keep coming. And that's something that our future councilmen and leaders are going to have to deal with. So if you have children and whatnot, I think it's probably a good conversation to have. But not to the extent that we traumatize our children and say, oh my gosh, nuclear going to blow up. But you know, there are things why we need it. And there's reasons behind that. But it's also, don't let us be the guinea pigs. Don't let us be the first one. Oh, we messed up, sorry, we're going home now. Well, that stuff's stuck in the ground. We're creating an income, what's blowing it this way, you guys want to do that. I don't want to be second that situation. But you've also got to look at that. We do need power. We're going to need electricity. I do not. We can put in wind farms here, or solar panels, or whatever. That's also a possibility you can think about. Because you can island power. You can make your own little power network, like here on a reservation even. Like for example, you put in solar panels, and power comes, it goes, you got electricity. You can do that with wind or both. And we can have our own little power here. It's going to cost money, but in the long run it will serve you. You're not worried about radiation and nuclear and all this other stuff. But there's all kinds of different ways to make electricity. Only one thing we know is that coal is going away. That much we know. And all these other ones are going to come to either solar, wind, or it's nuclear. That's like the United States, they're pushing over the nuclear. That's all I have to say. If there's any questions?
I have a comment. I did go to the meeting in Goldstrip as well. I'm Richard Hamilton, by the way. And what I felt was like selling a bill of goods before you make it. As we're learning more and more about nuclear. And I agree. I don't think it's going to be bad. I think we need to, and everybody needs to educate ourselves and the government and what have you more about it. And you know, it brings me back to the 3 Mile Island thing, you know, where it was devastating and still is. So yes, I think it's too early, too soon. I was shocked not finding out from Art that there's not a facility even they talk about it. We're going to do this, we're doing this, and it's not even a groundbreaking, nothing. So, too soon. Education, I agree with, and we can talk about it more, but 10, 15, 20 years down the road, thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to ask or comment or have any thoughts, what they think?
I have a question. Something I was looking into, but no one really has an answer for me is, what happens to our Class 1 air compacts, our water compacts, all the stuff that we arrange with the government? Does the president's executive order trump all of that? And you know, it's an important issue because it concerns all of our tribes. And so, things along those lines, no one really has an answer because that gentleman is pretty much steamrolling over all of our institutions, all of our policies, all of our procedures. So it's just a matter of time before we have something detrimental where we can't walk away from it. And he's going to take away our native rights little by little. You know, he started trying to take away birthright citizenship, but he was stuck. You know, but he's not going to be, you know, thwarted so easily. So those are things that, you know, are on my mind.
Okay, I'm going to try best to answer that part. As far as we know, that with this contract or the agreement that we had with Montana Power initially and the owners, the PPL, not PPL, Portland General Electric, was it? Anyway, there's a group of the original owners of Colstrip. I can't remember all the names right now, but one was Montana Power. Okay, that agreement was supposedly to last the duration of the units, the life cycle of the units. However, there's not an end date to that because the unit, I believe, was, the design for the unit, the life cycle of the unit, I think was like 40 years. 40, maybe 45 years, I believe it's even numbers 40 or 50, but I think it's more like 40 years, for 3 and 4. Okay? When you look at that agreement, it doesn't have an end date on it. So I guess it's based on the parties deciding, well, we're going to go ahead and shut down. Hey, Northern Cheyenne, we're going to shut our power plant down. So then that gives us the end of this agreement. We part, we shake hands, we go our separate ways. You know, let's get business. However, there's not an end date on this agreement. And one of my concerns about that has been, where did they get the permission? Basically, Colstrip, okay. Where did this group get the permission to go ahead and pursue nuclear? Without talking to us and saying, well, I know we have an agreement. We're thinking about going into nuclear after we shut our coal plants down. Anything like that. I have not heard. I don't have any documents here that say that. We're kind of behind with that information to our membership from the council. And so I'm at that part where I'm asking for documentation from the time that the units were built and this agreement came into effect to now. So how many meetings were there? How many other agreements, side deals were made? We used to have transportation. Transportation was the big one in that agreement. And that provided the transportation to all the construction workers to go to Colstrip. After construction, then it became operations and maintenance or outages. That transportation was always provided. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have that anymore. Where did that go away? Was there a resolution? Was there something that was done? That was all part of this agreement. Okay, the scholarships, I believe, are the only thing that are still left. I don't think there's any more funding towards police department. They're not doing anything more with the roads. I think that was a one-shot deal. The monitoring on the reservation, north side, I think that's handled by Jason Whiteman's group, the EPA part. But, you know, the things that are still escaping the stacks that aren't being monitored are the lead and the mercury. Now, whether that comes back this way, I've seen that blown a couple of times. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that color. They're not operating right, or the equipment is so badly deteriorated that it doesn't clean the gas up anymore like it was designed. The only time you should get color like that, or black smoke coming from is when they're starting up, because you're bringing in, you're burning propane, fuel oil. If you wanted to have propane, I think they had number 2 diesel over to 3 and 4. You know, they ignite when they first start up the plant, we'll bring in igniters. It's gas. Kind of heat up the water, get the boiler heated up and stuff before they introduce the coal. And as the coal's brought in, then as the firewall is established in that boiler, they rev back up on those guns. They're no longer burning fuel oil. Now it's coal going and self-sustaining. So then that should clear up after maybe an hour or 2. It doesn't take more than that, when I remember, for 3 and 4. And then they start bringing low loads and they start coming out. But that's usually what is causing that dark color and coming out the stacks. Now we see a plume coming out of there, and there's obviously not every gas is getting cleaned up, and it's supposed to be by design. So that's another issue that I am concerned about and question. That agreement, if it's a monitoring, if we catch something on our side and it exceeds EPA's limits and violates our Class 1 air, what is our recourse to go back to Colstrip and say, hey, you better shut down. Your stuff's coming over to us now. We have Class 1 air. That's the thing that stopped you one time already. Are we not going to have to stop you again because of our Class air? So those are the questions that I have myself, and that's where I'm at trying to get the information. And we all are entitled to that information as tribal members. Come in here and ask us to print it. This is our building. It belongs to all of us. You know, it's not like you can't come in here in those doors. This whole building belongs to us. We shouldn't be shut, those doors shouldn't be shuttered. Keeping the information for themselves for what? What are you doing behind these closed doors? Let us know what's going on with the Colstrip. You know, those are the questions you guys all need to start asking these people you elected to be sitting here. They're gonna be sitting here tomorrow morning, and they're gonna be talking about whatever. And these are the people you elected, but none of them are giving you information. What is going on these tables? You know, what information, the documents, they present a resolution, hey, yeah, I second it, yeah, well, where are you? And we don't even know what they're doing with the resolution. So you've got to go back to your council people, your district people, and ask for them. Demand that. You have a right to it, because you all have children, you have parents, you have siblings, you have grandchildren, you have friends, and we think about our future. We think about our future generations. That's the way we are trying as Native Americans here in our country. But the white culture doesn't believe in that. Other cultures don't think that way. They think about money, how much money they can make off anything. They make money off air, they make money off water now. And it's crazy. We never thought of that. We don't think of things like that. But in order for us to survive as a tribe, for our future generations, to fight for sport, and I'm hoping that some of you guys will join in this fight. It's actually become a fight for us for our survival, to find out what's really going on here. And especially on this nuclear issue. Anything else that comes, I mean, to the highways, what's been coming through here? Do we know what anything radioactive is coming through here? Is there any spent fuel coming on these trucks? Do we have anything to monitor that? I mean, at the reservation line, do we have the right to stop these trucks and say, hey, what are you carrying? What's on your manifest? We don't want any nuclear coming on our roads. We don't know. What if you have an accident? Or any of the ore that uranium is radioactive as an ore when you dig it out of the ground. And when you find it, that's when it's truly radioactive. But they haul uranium ore on trucks. And that's what the Navajo are dealing with. They got uranium mine down there, and then those trucks come right through their towns. And it is radioactive. So that's an issue they're dealing with. And I don't know what we've got going on our roads. That's even another side issue. But those are all things that you need to think about.